Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, some members of the board will be meeting virtually. The public is invited to the Bernard Jumbeck Administrative Center to watch the virtual stream and participate in public participation will be done via email submissions. Laptops will be made available for anyone wishing to submit comments or questions. All comments and or questions will be read out loud during public participation. 1.0, call to order. Roll call.
Mrs. Salzer, absent. Mrs. Egan?
Present.
Ms. Davenport?
Present.
Mr. Hellman?
Present.
Mrs. Callan? Absent. Mrs. Lamb? Absent. Mrs. Petropoulos?
Here. Okay, we can do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Do we have an introduction of guests?
Yes, today we're joined on the call, Andrew Ziegler. He is here with us from the Eisenhower Co-op. We also have Tammy Becker-Schnell from PMA who will be joining us, and then anyone else who is in person in the Finley multi-purpose room. So welcome everyone. We appreciate you coming.
Okay, 2.0, the Eisenhower Cooperative. 2.1, we need an annual budget hearing for the Eisenhower Cooperative for the fiscal year 21 budget. I'd like to open that hearing. Are there any questions or comments about the hearing? Again, the hearing is open for the budget for the fiscal year 21 for the Eisenhower Cooperative. Any questions or comments? Okay, we can close the hearing.
And I would just ask that at this time, if either Kathy or Andrew have anything to say in regards to the Eisenhower budget, if there's anything that needs to be said.
Okay, sorry, my internet's still down home from the storms yesterday, so I don't really have anything to look off of, so I'm just going to do this off the top of my head. But basically, with our supplies and equipment and everything, those are usually flat. There's usually no increase on those because we're able to budget consistently for each program. The main increase in expenses this year come from salary benefits, which is with most of the districts. Overall, as our staff, there was about a 3% increase in salaries, and benefits increased about 4%. So, however, we're getting a lot more participation in our program. So, if there's more students, that means that kind of spreads that cost out and keeps the tuition per student pretty flat. That's what's happening for us this year. The only program that might see an increase is our hard hearing program. So other than that, that's the main change to our budget. The other change that's happening is the idea of flow-through money is going directly to your district now. And so that's why if you look at our budget, the federal expenses and revenue are down this year. But otherwise, those are the main changes. The tuition should be pretty flat just due to increased participation in programs. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
And I'm just going to add that Chicago Bridges as being part of the Eisenhower Co-op is the administrating district over the budget and the paying of the bills. So that's why Andrew joins us today to approve that budget.
Thank you both. Does anyone have any questions for them before we look at a potential action to approve the budget? Okay. All right, Ms. Zia, I believe we're ready for 2.2 then.
2.2, potential board action to approve the Eisenhower Cooperative FY21 budget.
I'll make the motion to approve the budget.
I'll second the motion.
Mrs. Petropoulos?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Ms. Davenport?
Aye.
And Mrs. Egan?
Aye. 3.0 presentations.
Yes, today again, we're joined by Tammy from PMA. We've been working on our bonds, and she is here from PMA to kind of give the board what I think is a very positive update on where we are with our bonds. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Tammy.
Thank you. Yes, I come bearing good news. You've shared screen capability with me, right, Dr. Thorns?
Is it still anything yet?
Here we go. Yep. Now it's looking good. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, greetings, everyone, and thanks for letting me have a little bit of time in your agenda tonight. Bottom line is you access the market at almost the perfect time in history, and I'm excited to share the news of what transpired with your sale. Just to backpedal a little bit, I wanted to talk about where bond market conditions were a few weeks ago when your bonds did hit the market. So we looked at this chart in the past. This is looking at the AAA MMD index. MMD stands for Municipal Market Data, and it's an amalgamation of issuers throughout the country, and it's the index that we look at every single day in the municipal bond market. So whether you're a school district in Cook County, Illinois, or any other type of governmental issuer across the country, your bonds are going to sell relative to what this index is doing. So we care very much about what this index is doing from day to day. So when we talked about this in the past, I highlighted for you, here we were with COVID-19 and how rates spiked up after hitting a low in early March. And we had some volatility for the next couple of months, but then in early May, things started to recover pretty significantly, and we hit this sort of flat line in the municipal bond market for several weeks. But then you can see here, rates started to drop even into the beginning of July, and of course your sale was in the middle of July. So we knew we were hitting the market at a really good time. We were very eager, obviously, to get into the market and see what investors were going to do in terms of your bonds. This is information that we had updated as of mid-May in terms of where we thought the bonds might sell. So just as a reminder, we were generating $5 million in bond proceeds. The estimated total debt service costs over the life of the bond issues listed here. You can see the annual payments of just under $7.5 million. That was our estimate in the middle of May. And the estimated true interest cost on the bonds, what we call the TIC, which means we're incorporating all of the costs of the financing. Our estimate was a 3.45%. So again, that was our best estimate based on where the market was in early May. So we got into the market a few weeks ago, and Mesro was the underwriter. As you recall, the board had approved that selection recently. And one of the things that we do on the day of sale as the district's financial advisor is we monitor very closely how the sale is going. We were trying to give us real-time updates to Dr. Thorns and Kathy throughout the day as well. And what this chart is telling us is that there was ample interest, more than ample interest, in your bond sale that day. So these dates here represent different maturities of your bonds. And as the day progresses with the sale, we're watching to see how well subscribed it is. And you'll notice that many of the maturities, it says 1.0x. And over here we have some that say 2.0x. Well, that just basically means 1 times matured or 2 times matured. So the bonds out here, we were excited because it means they were oversubscribed. There were multiple investors interested in your bonds. Where something had a 1-time subscription, that means we had the entire maturity covered. That was a good sign as the pricing was going on. If something didn't have anything here, like you see in these middle maturities, that's not necessarily something to be concerned with, because part of the arrangement with an underwriter like Mesro is they will guarantee that if on the day of the sale, the bonds aren't sold immediately to investors, it's a guaranteed underwriting, meaning they will buy any unsold bonds and put them in their inventory, and then they have to assume risk in the market if they want to try to sell them in the secondary market starting the next day, or they can hang on to them for their inventory as well, possibly. But we weren't concerned as the day progressed. We watched this really closely because we want to get an indication if there's oversubscription, potentially there can be adjustments in the interest rates. And so as we were having dialogue all day, we were noticing that there was a lot of interest out here, and maybe we should adjust, the interest rates lower, for example. That's part of the dialogue that was going on. Now, this page, there's a lot going on this page, and I will not bore you with all the details here, but I want to give you a sense of what we were looking at on the day of the sale. And Dr. Thorns and Kathy were also a significant part of this discussion. Your bonds priced again a few weeks ago, and when we're in the market, we want to try to have further evidence that your sale went well by trying to, if we can, find other issues as similar to yours as possible, meaning other bond issues in the state of Illinois. If we can find another school district issue that's priced recently, or maybe a city that has a similar credit rating to yours, a similar type of structure, meaning how many years until its final maturity, similar size. As you can imagine, it's not a perfect science because we can't find another bond issue anywhere exactly like yours. But we did on the day of sale, we compared to a couple other bond issues that had priced relatively recently in the state of Illinois that were similar in nature to yours. And what we were trying to communicate to Dr. Thorns and Kathy on the day of the sale was that compared to those issues, trying to understand all the different variables that are at play, your transaction priced very, very well compared to other recent issues. So not only are we looking at what the market's doing, we also want to make sure that compared to other things that have been happening, we want to make sure your transaction priced appropriately given what's happening all around you. And we had further evidence as we priced your transaction that it did. So ultimately what happened was we had a great sale for you. So the final true interest cost was a 1.89%. So a 20-year issue, actually about a 19-year issue, excuse me, under 2% for your transaction. That is absolutely phenomenal and reflective of being in this incredibly low interest rate environment. The other thing I would point out for you is, again, still generating $5 million in proceeds. The total debt service cost, I think before was, I said, closer to $7.5 million. Yours came in about $6,250,000, so significantly less than we had estimated. And admittedly, when we were running numbers for the board back in March and even in May, we were conservative because we can't predict where rates are going to go from day to day or week to week. But you hit the market at a really great time. I also would say that given all the wonderful fiscal stewardship we've demonstrated as a board and administration for a very long time also played into this, because when investors are evaluating whether to buy your bonds, they're looking at the offering document and they get to see your financial performance, your history, what's going on in the district. And there's no question that your financial performance and fiscal stewardship also played a big part in how well your bonds are priced. So you all should be very, very proud of that as well. But to say that you hit this out of the ballpark, I think is kind of an understatement. This transaction went so incredibly well, and I congratulate you on that. And certainly want to answer any questions that you might have. There's a couple more slides here that just provide some high-level details about your transaction. This is the pricing page, which shows every single maturity that was sold, what the par amounts were. What is shaded means those are the principal amounts that are callable, which equals just over $2.33 million. And they're callable not for about 9.5 years. But that's a standard call feature, as we call it, meaning investors assume that you would want the ability to potentially refinance these bonds in the future, and making them callable in roughly 9.5 years meant there's no interest rate penalty to you to doing that. If we made it shorter, then there might have been, but this is sort of the standard in the public finance industry. So you will have the opportunity down the road, depending where interest rates are, because it's kind of hard to imagine that at any point in the future rates could be much lower than they are today, but if they are, you will have the flexibility as a district to refund them or refinance them down the road. And then finally, this was just the timetable we presented to Dr. Thorns and Kathy when we priced a few weeks ago, but I'm sure they may have already communicated to you that the proceeds from the sale actually hit your account through the Treasurer's office yesterday. So the money is literally in the bank and available to you when you're ready to start working on your projects. So that's all I had in the presentation I wanted to highlight for you, but of course I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tammy. I really appreciate that. when we started this all the way back at the beginning of the year, no one knew exactly where we'd be in the market. It's nice to see that something like this worked out in our favor, but I think Tammy made a really good point that a lot of it also goes back to the financial stewardship of the board over many, many years going back along with the administration. So I think that's really important to note, and just wanted to see if anyone had any questions for her. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you. We hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we are moving on to 4.0, the approval of the consent agenda, which includes minutes. Do I need to read that all? I'm sorry. Or just consent agenda, that's all I have to say, right? Okay, so the approval of the consent agenda, 4.0. Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Davenport. Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Mr. Hilton.
Aye.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye. All right, 5.0 superintendent's report.
All right, thank you very much. Before I get into the bulleted points, I did just want to make sure everyone knew, and I shared this out with the staff in the community earlier today, that last week I did end up receiving a positive COVID test, and I have been in isolation at home ever since. That's why I'm actually doing this from my isolated room right now. So I wanted to let everyone know that, and I put in there for both the staff and the community that if they have any specific questions, to please reach out. We did reach out to the Cook County Department of Public Health, as well as our regional office, Vanessa Kinder at the ISC4, to make sure that everyone who needed to be aware was made aware. And we did go through the district office and get that clean very, very well. So we are hopeful that I am the only one who has it, and we can move on once these symptoms have passed. So I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that, as well as out here in Mokina, this is like Andrew. Although I have power, I have not had internet since about 11 o'clock. So this is being run through a hotspot. So if there are any difficulties technology-wise, I just ask that you kind of bear with us as we try to make sure it doesn't go too haywire here. But I do want to really jump into our bullet points here. First, I have 5.1, the PTA report. And I'm really excited that PTA reached out to really figure out what it is that they can do for our staff at this time. So we're talking as an administrative team, well, what can we really do for our staff? Usually, almost all staffs in school love luncheons and things like that. And that's probably not the safest thing to do right now. So trying to figure out ways that we can still throw some fun in there. And I do know that the PTA is working on some fun events, virtual events that we can have for our kids and our families, just as we know we can't bring in any extra people too often, big groups, but still finding ways to let the kids have fun with their families. 5.2 are vacant positions at the time. The school year, you start seeing a lot of people making changes very quickly. And right now we have a speech and language over at Finley, and we have a special education teacher at Ridge Central, as well as a middle school science teacher, and just most recently a music teacher that we also need at Finley Junior High. I am happy to talk. We've been really going through custodians that Kathy has been interviewing. I do believe at this time we have started our custodian over at Lawn that fills that position. I know we have been interviewing for a float custodian, and I know Kathy's even interviewed a couple more people. Kathy, can you just give a quick update on where we are with that at this point?
All right, yeah, we're actually having our float custodian start tomorrow, so that's pretty exciting. It's the first time in a very long time we will have a full custodial staff. And as far as the cleaning crew, I extended an offer to 2 individuals today. Ideally, we would like to get 3 prior to the start of the year. 1 has responded and will be coming into the district shortly to do some paperwork, and I'm very optimistic that the second person will also accept the position.
Thank you, Kathy. So as you can see, our principals have been very busy, as well as Kathy, interviewing and trying our best to fill these positions with quality candidates. Because our new Teacher Institute is this Friday, and we want to have as many of our new teachers there as possible. Next on 5.3 is our school year reopening update. As you all know, the last couple of meetings I've given a larger presentation on the different models, the hybrid model, the remote model. And a week ago, last Tuesday, was when that survey closed for our parents to let us know if they were choosing hybrid or remote. And we had a very good turnout. We had over 1,100 people fill out the form, which out of 1,500 possible is by far the most we've ever had to fill something out. We were right around 25% of our students who chose 100% remote. And we were in about the 360 total students. Since that time, in this week, we have had parents reach out and request that we move their students to remote. And remember, we did leave that possibility open for our families, knowing that things change so quickly, and if a family did not feel comfortable, we still wanted them to have that option. So right now, we are up to, as of about 3 o'clock today, 412 students, which is about 28% of our total student population at this time. And right now we have 12 full-time staff members who are going to be remote teachers, and we do think that that number could possibly go up a little bit over the next couple of days as we see more and more parents make that decision. And we are balancing those numbers and trying to make sure that our remote classes aren't too large. I think right now our largest number of students who have chosen remote is at the kindergarten level. We have 54 students who've done that. And obviously that even 2 classes, you're pushing like 27 kindergartners in a remote class. So we're looking at the possibility of adding another kindergarten remote teacher. But we're trying to make sure that we balance that with our in-class sizes. So we still need to make sure that we keep those classes very low to meet our social distance guidelines. So as an administrative team, we're looking at those numbers every single day and making decisions as needed. Any questions on the numbers that we see right now? I do know that our principals are all hosting a meeting tomorrow where they've asked for questions ahead of time for parents to send in, specifically things that just they don't feel have been answered yet or specific to the building. And so they are going to be hosting those tomorrow, and they will be recorded so that people can watch them on demand. Chrissy?
This might be in the paperwork and I didn't see it, but if my child or my parent's child is in the class and then say 2 weeks from now they go remote, will they still have the classroom teacher or will they be dropped into a remote class that might be in a different spot? Or what happens to a student who has to quarantine? Are they still going to be doing the work with the classroom teacher, or are they being dropped into that remote class?
Yeah, so they would actually be put into the remote class, and that's why we talked about the importance of our scope and sequence and our pacing to make sure that we are on the same wavelength, to make sure that they're not getting dropped into a class that's 3 days ahead of them or even 3 days behind.
So while the classes are then kind of streamlining what's going on?
You know, we've been talking about making sure that we do the best we can with that.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
So are you saying though, if a student has to self-quarantine, they're immediately put into the full remote rather than continuing on with work from their own teacher?
If they're going to be put in, if they're like the only child who's been put in quarantine for the 2 weeks, to make sure that they get some type of instruction, that they're getting the synchronous learning, then yes, we would put them in that remote class.
Okay, but if it's the entire class?
Yeah, if it's the entire class, and hopefully if it's the teacher included, the teacher would feel well enough to teach, and then we would ask that entire class to just move into the remote. And if it's the entire class and the teacher was not well enough, we would look to bring in a substitute for that time.
And what does the substitute pool look like?
So we have looked at each building of just bringing in 2 kind of subs we put on every single day, knowing that we're going to need them. And I do know that Central at this time has filled both of the positions. And Finley, I believe, is not filled in yet. I believe that Lawn has filled at least one and has another one in mind.
Okay. And, I'm sorry, I should know this too, but when Chrissy asked about numbers, the pre-K program I know there's been lots of talk going back and forth, but is that a remote option as well? And,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, we have 18 students currently who are in the remote option.
So do we have students on the wait list for pre-K?
Yes, we do, yeah, and Mrs. Sataro has been working through that with the list and figuring out who's coming in person. We did, I believe we limited the in-person to 15 total to split to start the year, so that the numbers were not too high, and looking to add to those as the year goes on.
Okay, so it is open to add from the wait list. And with kindergarten, because it seems to be a lot of kindergartners, I don't know, is it possible to communicate with the parents in terms of, maybe people are signing their kids up for kindergarten because they feel like they have to and they should, but to let them know that they have the option to wait until next year? It just seems like that's a whole lot of kindergartners and how that will work either remotely or in person. So I'm just wondering if, I don't want to discourage anybody from school, obviously, but I feel like if that's something that people just don't know, that
if they have the legal option, we can at least let them know and have that conversation with them for sure.
Okay.
So that what you're addressing is the fact that I didn't know this until you told me that legally nobody has to be enrolled in kindergarten, it's more of an optional thing. I just assumed it had to be, so that's what we wanted the public to know about.
Just so people don't feel like they have to, like that they're gonna get in trouble.
Well, no, I mean, if you're doing it online and you're concerned and you're only doing it because you feel the
Yeah.
obligation, I can see letting parents know that.
Yeah, and if every single one of them still wants to do it, we'll be able to do that without a problem.
And then, given that number, I guess, the overall number, and seeing the breakdown that was provided, I feel a little bit surprised at the number of 12 remote teachers, because we didn't have that in our packet. I would have thought that particular, I thought that there would be like 2 per grade level, and it doesn't seem like that's breaking down in that way. So I'm just wondering like how that is going to be broken down. And obviously you said, as numbers keep going, that could be fluid, but it surprises me right now that seems to be a minimal number.
Yeah, right, and right now we do have 2 per grade level, and some of the grade levels, like 3rd and 4th, from the updated numbers I got today, where it's 44 kids at each of those grade levels, so you have 2 remote teachers, so you're about 22 kids. But like 2nd grade is at 53, and kindergarten is at 54, so those are ones we are definitely looking, and some of those have gone up 5 or 6 just from yesterday. So that's why it is such a fluid situation at this time.
But you said there's only 12 teachers slotted right now for remote?
So we got kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Yeah, so, and then pre-K, we're able to use some existing, just time that they have in their schedules. So we're at kindergarten through 5th grade, and then here's where, so junior high, the way it's built into their schedule, that two of their classes are remote classes where the kids will be rotating.
Okay.
Here at the junior high, we need to do both remotely and hybrid.
That's right, all right. That makes sense.
Any other questions on the reopening updates? Next up, we have our open houses, which obviously need to look a lot different this year than inviting every family, which is one of our favorite days of the year is to have everyone come in and to see their classes. So we are looking at doing a virtual event this year where our teachers will be taping some things ahead of time, some presentations and just talking about classrooms and what to expect this year, as well as really trying to hold a virtual Q&A with families. And they would look at about 20 or 30 minutes where parents can jump on and ask questions specifically about the classroom. And hopefully we'll be able to answer as many of those as possible. And we really feel that that's an important part of an open house, is just being able to kind of communicate with people. And I think a lot of good information will come out of the videos, but I think it's really hard to replace that in person. So at least by doing it live for a short amount of time, we'll hopefully capture some of that feel. But it's going to be different for everyone, and all of us who've been to open houses before, you kind of know what to expect every single year. This year will look a little bit different, and we are going to try to stagger the times for the different grade levels for parents, so that they can try to do the Q&As as many as they can for their children. And then the videos that are presented ahead of time, those will be online to be viewed at different times, so that the parents don't have to do a break. And I do believe our principals will also talk a little bit more about that tomorrow in their presentation. For the 5-5, it's hard to believe in 6 days we'll have our opening day institute for all of our staff. And I think back to last year when it was my first ever opening day institute with the staff, and the nervous excitement that I had for that. And I think this year will be about the same, but it will definitely be a different feel. We are asking that all of our staff come into the buildings for these days, but that they will be in their classroom. We're not, we usually gather right there in the Finley multi-purpose room. We have 200 people jam-packed in there. But this year we're asking people to be in, and then we'll hold the Institute Day virtually. So Monday will be an opening message for me, and then we'll have time to really dive deep into what the procedures and things are in your individual schools. And then on Tuesday, there's going to be math training on our new math tools. And then Wednesday and Thursday, for the majority of the time, is really going to focus on the remote learning aspect for everybody. And the only other thing that we'll have going on those days is we do have a legally required Title IX training for our staff. The administrators have a much longer one that they'll be going through early next week, but the staff will have a shorter one that has to be done on those days. So we're looking forward to it, but again, it's going to be so different than everywhere else that we've had before. And just talking with some superintendents who've had it already this week, just some of the technological glitches that are to be expected when you have a whole district signing on at once. I know we've been talking and working with Gino to make sure that we can minimize those as much as possible.
Can I ask a couple questions about the Institute Day that you guys are saying?
Yes.
It's only coming from my, I'm going back tomorrow, so we're doing a lot of virtual stuff, you know, and they were very, very specific about guidelines that even if I'm in my classroom, there's another individual in there that we have to wear a mask based on the new information that came down. And so I'm curious with the Institute Day, with teachers being in their room, where will support staff be located during the Institute Day? Are they going to have devices? Are they going to be using their personal devices? And, you know, the types of training is going on how you're going to space people out.
Yeah, and so for the devices, for sure, we have to work to make sure our paraprofessionals will have a device. We think that's really important, knowing just how quickly things can change this year. And you are correct. We just received that information late last week that even if it's 2 adults in the classroom with the door closed, that you still have to have your mask on. That the only way you can have it off is if you are the only one in that room with the door closed. So we're going to try to space it out as best we can, but we are still going to have certain rooms that will have more than one person in there. And I think it's important, just like we plan on doing with the students then, to make sure we're giving breaks. Hopefully we'll have some nice days and the teachers will be able to get outside and spend some time outside conversing with each other, practicing that social distance there. Next up, it kind of goes along with, when we talk about our institute days, our professional development for staff. And we usually by this time we have a calendar that really spells out the entire year. We've tried to make that, as we've used the word a couple times today, a little more fluid this year, knowing how much everyone has on their plates right now. And we do believe that it's important to continue to grow in all of these areas that are listed, whether it's ELA and math and digital learning. Those are all important areas, and we also have to recognize where we're at right now as a district and as a staff. And and to try to not pile on too much when we first begin. But it's still important that we're planning for these moving forward. And I've talked with all of our consultants, and any professional development that we're going to be focusing on this year will be done virtually. I'm excited. My first professional development is on Friday. It's our new Teacher Institute. It'll be my first time to have them kind of all together on a Zoom call, but we'll be doing that on Friday morning. And then the other one, the last one on the list, the Partnership for Resilience. We really did some neat things last year with them, whether it was our dental van, and just some of the SEL things that we worked with. And I'm excited to see what we continue to do with them this year. And then finally, I wanted to point out the math. We are still working with MCMI, but we do remember that we do have 2 math coaches that we've hired. I talked to the board previously about having to move them into remote positions, but if we are able to move them out of those positions at some point throughout the year, depending on how things are going, we will definitely have them right back in the professional development era. But we still have MCMI to help us with that for right now. For our amended school calendar, we talked in our last board meeting about amending the calendar. If you remember, previously we were supposed to start on Thursday, the 20th, for our first day. In order to get those remote planning days, we did push it back so that we could get 2 remote planning days that week and start on that Monday. And both that Monday and Tuesday are going to be 1:30 dismissal times. I think that's usually a good call on the first day. These are going to be long days for our staff and our students, especially now. And to be able to get out a little bit early and kind of take a breath and do some other things in the afternoon, I think is important. We've also removed the school improvement days on Wednesdays for September and October. And if we continue along the same lines that we are right now in the hybrid model, we would look to also do the November one. There's not the December one, but for right now, we have kept the November one. So those are the changes that we're looking to approve, as well as remembering that the election day, November 3rd, was originally the Teacher Institute. That is no longer the case. That has been moved to Tuesday, April 6th. Any questions on the calendar change? I believe we talked about it quite a bit. Okay. Next up, we have the Chromebook charters. District, our original thought was to buy a Chromebook charter for every single student, so we'd be looking at about 1,500 Chromebook charters. They are really difficult and time consuming to take out of the charging parts. I believe it took 2 of our employees almost 25 days to do that. So it's something that is not an easy in and out. And so we did decide, instead of going with the 1,500, really looking, and we got down to 906 is what we decided would be most beneficial for us. And that's at a total of just under $24,000, $23,909.04. When we had originally decided that it would be a good idea to get these for everyone, we did think that that price would come in much lower. But if we would have gotten one for every single student, to have one at both school and at home, we'd be talking at almost $40,000. So we will have a charger for everyone to use at home, and then we believe we'll still have plenty at school that people forget that they'll be able to plug it in the classrooms. Next up is the approval of the administrative action plan. This is something that the board does every single summer, and usually, my understanding in the last couple of years, we've had a very productive, very fun meeting in April where we bring people together and talk about where we are currently and where we hope to go in terms of our 5 areas of the strategic plan. Couldn't do that in person in April, and so the administrative team went through the action plan. We recorded a video, which if this is approved tonight, we would like to send out the video this week for our community to see. And what I'm excited about with the strategic plan is that this is something that is ongoing, that even in a pandemic where our focus has had to shift a lot, the strategic plan really forces us to continue to look forward and not just kind of look in the moment, but also kind of look out to what are the possibilities moving forward. And I talked to Dr. Madonia, who has helped us with this in the past, And his plan is to come out in October and to make a proposal to the board, and then get started in January. And hopefully we can maybe bring people together and meet, and start working on our next 5 years. Just from coming into the district last year, I know the importance of the strategic plan and making sure that you have a focus, especially in times like these, to continue to move forward. So I'm really excited to continue that process with Dr. Madonia and the board and the community. 510 is our e-learning plan, and I mentioned it in our last board meeting, but this is completely different than what we're doing with the hybrid and the 100% remote. Remember, last year was the first year that we were allowed to put an e-learning plan in place that would take the days, it pretty much can replace like a snow day or an emergency day. And last year when we talked about it, no one really felt we were ready. We did not have Chromebooks in everyone's hands, and it would have come down to just basically sending a packet of worksheets home. And I don't think any of us felt very comfortable doing that. For our e-learning plan, it would look similar to what we had for remote learning in the spring, which I believe is okay for a day here and there, not for a long, consistent period. Because I think the important thing to remember for this is also that if our teachers are at home, there's a good chance their entire families are at home. And this is one where we would offer a lot of flexibility for the kids. They would have their assignments posted by that morning, and if they weren't able to complete them, because some of our kids might have to watch either siblings or whatever else is going on. If it's an emergency day, there might be a chance that some of our houses don't have electricity and they can't get these downloaded. So there would definitely be some flexibility offered for these, and the state does allow up to 5 days a year for this to come into play. And again, we do have to hold a hearing for this. Tonight we did put in the Southtown a posting for the hearing as was required 10 days before, so that went out on Sunday, August 2nd. And then if the board signs off on it, then it does go to our regional office in the ISC4, and it has to be there by September 1st for them to sign off on it. Does anyone have any questions on the e-learning plan?
Just one general question in terms of what the time expectation be for each of the grade levels.
Yeah, so the state, like they did with our remote right now, it is a 5-hour required day. They have not given flexibility like they did in the spring where it was for kindergarten, it was much less. And again, I think that comes back to talking with our staff and getting them to understand that a kindergartner sitting in front of a computer 5 hours is not a good use of the day. So to be realistic of how to assign that work. And 511, the SASED Vision Program, which is really the School Association for Special Education in DuPage. It's their cooperative vision program, which our cooperative does not provide down here. And we have been using them, I believe, for 8 years now. And we send students there when that's what their needs are. And we've always sent them there. And this year they are requesting an intergovernmental agreement, which they're really requesting from anyone who is not part of their cooperative. They do have an enrollment fee of about $5,000. We are estimating that the program cost per student this year will be $40,611. So again, we have utilized that when we've needed it for the last 8 years, but they are requesting an intergovernmental agreement this year that I would recommend you. That is all 11 of my items. So I am going to turn it over to Kathy unless anyone has any other questions for me. Thank you.
Okay, so first thing on the agenda is the FY21 tentative budget. You'll find the tentative budget in your board packet, and it was also posted at the district office for public viewing. That is required to be on display for the next 30 days. And so over the next 3 weeks, I will be working on adjusting that, and then that final budget will be asked to be adopted by the board at the September meeting. Did anyone have any questions on the tentative budget? Okay, as past practice, what I will be doing is asking the board to retroactively approve posting of that in the district office. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is just to give you a little bit of update on our summer projects. The electrical work is all completed in the front entrances. The two companies worked collaboratively to give us a little bit more security in those front entrances, so that project went very well. As far as the fire alarm, I did receive notification today that the fire panel is being delivered, and so unfortunately we wanted a completion date of that roughly July 31st. That looks like it's going to be more mid-August. And if you remember, the company is able to work on doing all the electrical work and all the work involved prior to connecting it. So once that fire alarm panel does come in, it's just a matter of connecting it. And I always do need to stress that the current fire alarm system is fully operational. This is just being done to enhance it into a more current model. And usually this time of the year is when we do some asphalt repairs at the buildings. So happy to report that has all been done. A little bit lower scale this year because this year, last time, we had considerable investments in that. So we were just able to do some seal coating and some minor patching. And the only work we're still waiting on is from a different vendor who's going to be doing some additional striping in the parking areas. And that should be done either later this week or next. And then finally, some real good news, the acoustic installation over at Bridge Lawn is fully complete. Home Energy Control is the vendor that did that for us, and they actually sent us some pictures of the completed work, and they did a really great job in protecting that gymnasium floor, along with all the other equipment and supplies that were being stored in there. And they did a really nice job carving out framework for the artwork that is on the wall. So really a thanks to the Enchanted Backpack grant that paid for $20,000 of that to improve the acoustics. So really excited to say that project is completed. Okay, 6.3 is just some annual housekeeping. This is the time we ask the board to approve the renewal of integrated control technologies. And basically, ICT is the company that monitors and repairs our automated controls for the HVAC systems at all buildings. And once again, they have kept that premium constant, and we'll be asking the board to approve that later in the meeting. And then Honeywell. Honeywell is our company that actually maintains all of our HVAC units. And normally we sign an agreement for a 3-year commitment with a minor escalation clause. When we signed that agreement last year, we anticipated an increase going into this year because last year all the Ridge Lawn new HVAC equipment was under warranty. So unfortunately, the premium for that is going up around almost $10,000. We have been very, very happy with Honeywell. They have been with us for several years, and so I would be asking the board to approve that agreement later in the meeting. I did share with you in your board packet a second proposal. We asked Honeywell to put together an estimate if they were to take charge of our filter replacement in all three in the buildings. And it's included in your packet, but in discussing it with the maintenance engineer who is now routinely changing those filters, we felt that was a little bit high, but just wanted to include it in the board packet. But my recommendation would not be to go with that service as well. Any questions on either Honeywell or ICT? Okay.
we have any potential board action 7.1 to approve the amended 2021 school year calendar? We have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Davenport.
Aye.
Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
And Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 7.2, okay, 8.1, or 8.0, new business, 8.1, public hearing to allow for e-learning program in lieu of the district scheduled emergency days. Would like to open that hearing. Does anybody have any further questions or comments about that? Or anybody in the audience? It is a hearing, so we need to ask a couple times. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, then the hearing is closed. So 8.2, potential board action to adopt resolution allowing e-learning program in lieu of the district scheduled emergency days. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Ms. Davenport. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
And Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 8.3, potential board action to approve administrative action plan for the year plan. Do you have a motion?
Is this motion for 8.2?
Is for 8.3, the administrative action plan for the final year of the strategic plan.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Ms. Davenport. Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 8.4, potential board action to approve the live streaming of board meetings.
I just wanted to jump in, just because we didn't cover this in any of my reports, that currently we do provide the meetings anywhere from a day to sometimes it takes us up to a week to get that on the website. So this would allow for our meetings to be live streamed so people would be able to watch them from home as they're going on. And then we would also put them on the website to make sure that people do not have a chance to watch them, they can watch them another time. Ms. Davenport?
I just would also like to add, in as much as board members can attend from home, I think it's prudent to allow community members also watching from home. So I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Ms. Davenport.
Aye.
And Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 8.5, potential board action to approve payment to IT Savvy in the amount of $18,559.55 for Chromebook sleeves and laptop pads.
And these will be specifically for the sleeves, for the Chromebooks, so that they can zip them up and offer some protection for the Chromebooks. We had originally, if you looked at getting the bags, which were about the same price, but then envisioned people carrying a backpack and then another bag with a Chromebook, and it made more sense to just be able to zip the sleeve and put it in their backpacks.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Davenport.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Mr. Hillman,
Aye.
and Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 8.6, potential board action to approve payment to IT Savvy in the amount of $23,909.04 for Chromebook chargers.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Davenport,
Aye.
Mr. Hillman,
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos,
Aye.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 8.7, potential board action to post for a second reading or to adopt. I don't even read out policies, right?
I don't, does she, I'm gonna go to Lori for that one. She knows this stuff.
Actually, she does not necessarily have to read those. If she wants to, she's welcome to. This is a second reading. So these have been spoken about before the public, and I don't want to speak for Dr. Torrance, but I can say that to my knowledge, no one has had any questions or comments via email or through public commentary.
That is correct, and I would recommend that we go ahead and adopt these policies.
Okay, so can we get a board, potential board action to adopt the second reading of these policies? Looking for a motion?
Do we have to make the motion to adopt them, or do we have the second reading?
We can choose either, whichever way you state it, but Dr. Torrance has already asked for it to be adopted.
I'll make the motion to adopt them.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Petropoulos,
Aye.
Ms. Davenport,
Aye.
Mr. Hillman,
Aye.
and Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 8.8, potential board action to approve intergovernmental agreement between SASED and Chicago School District 127.5 and an estimated annual program of $45,611.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Hillman,
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos,
Aye.
Ms. Davenport,
Aye.
and Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 8.9, potential board action to retroactively approve a contract with Pavement Systems Incorporated in the amount of $12,822 for asphalt repair and maintenance.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Davenport,
Aye.
Mr. Hillman,
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos,
Aye.
and Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 8.10, potential board action to approve service agreement with Honeywell Building Solutions in the amount of $52,740 for fiscal year 21.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Davenport,
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos,
Aye.
Mr. Hillman,
Aye.
and Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 8.11, potential board action to approve contract with Integrated Control Technologies in the amount of $14,550 for one-year HVAC automation services.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mrs. Petropoulos,
Aye.
Mr. Hillman,
Aye.
Ms. Davenport,
Aye.
and Mrs. Egan.
Aye. 8.12, potential board action to approve payment to Energy Control Incorporated in the amount of $24,527 for the installation of acoustic insulation in the Ridge Lawn Gymnasium.
I'll make the motion for 8.12.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Petropoulos?
Aye.
Ms. Davenport?
Aye.
Mr. Hillman?
Aye.
And Mrs. Egan?
Aye. 8.13, potential board action to retroactively approve the display of the fiscal year 21 tentative budget.
I'll make the motion to post it.
There a second?
Did you say you approve it or oppose it?
To,
Oh, okay. I'll second the motion then. It sounded different.
Mr. Hillman?
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos?
Aye.
Ms. Davenport?
Aye.
And Mrs. Egan?
Aye. 8.14, other? Nothing. 9.0, meeting reports. 10.0, informational. And 11.0, opportunity for visitors to speak. Elaine, do you know how many visitors we have that are going to speak?
I think you have to say something first, or do I just call, you want me to call them up?
I don't know how many there were before I read it.
Well, two.
Oh, right. Do I need to read the whole policy?
You don't have to read the whole thing, but you should just kind of explain how it goes right now.
Okay, so Mrs. Davenport will call up visitors to speak. If two have signed up, if there are any more that would like to speak up after they have, you still would have that opportunity. We as a board don't respond to public comments, but we do take them into consideration for future discussions.
First speaker is Allison Allen. Hi, I'm Allison Bell. I'm the co-president of the Chicago Ridge Education Association, which is the certified teaching staff union. I'm also here with Melissa Millett, and if my time goes over, she'll just tag team what we have to finish saying. Last week, a survey was put out to the union with the question of, do you feel safe to return to work with in-person teaching in the fall? Out of the 115 responses, 54% of those responses stated that they felt that returning to work with in-person teaching is unsafe. There are many staff members who have high risk factors, are a caretaker or someone with high risk factors, are afraid of getting very, very sick. Their staffing responsibilities put them at more risk and or just overall lack of confidence that their work environment will be cleaned and sanitized in a manner to keep them safe. There are 46% of the staff that do feel safe to return to work. But whether staff feels safe or not, there are some concerns that staff feel the same about, and that is the lack of confidence that we are ready to start school in less than 2 weeks. The administration and teachers have been working nonstop for the past month on making plans to open up school. But the plans are difficult to nail down due to the fact that this is a novel situation and some answers just can't be answered due to the unknown and lack of guidance from the state, or even worse, the ever-changing guidance. Another reason is that staffing can't be finalized due to the daily changing of families from hybrid to remote. Though we understand and respect the why behind giving parents these opportunities for switching, it creates a planning obstacle. Staff has a lot to plan for to start school in a typical year, and this year has all staff completely rebuilding how they teach. And some staff are placed in positions that they haven't done in a very long time, or in some cases ever done, which requires even more prep time. School starts in less than 2 weeks, and so much has still yet to get done. Another thing that is a concern to staff is who will cover these classes when they are not able to come to school. Some staff members who are at high risk have asked for accommodations to teach remotely and will not be able to have that opportunity. This may force some to take leaves, or if they do become ill, will have extended absences. Substitutes have been a very big problem in the past, and many times specials would get canceled or other staff would be pulled to cover these classes. This year, specials are a much needed break from the academic routine for the students and the teachers, and so canceling specials would be devastating to students and staff alike. The staff that traditionally was utilized to internally sub, for example, the reading specialists, they are now tasked with remote teaching and therefore cannot just cancel their students to do the day for subbing. CREA is asking the following to be considered and implemented. Pushing back the start of school to allow plans to be created and to allow staff to take in all information and make plans to execute all of their responsibilities. Assurances and follow-through that the buildings will be cleaned and sanitized to the standards that allow for a safe environment, as well as all protocols, guidelines with the reopening plan strictly followed. Accommodations given to staff that are in the high-risk category. During the week of Institute, the schedule is wide open for staff to be able to plan and get ready for students. Building daily, weekly schedules that allow for more plan time, as there is much more to plan for with online and in-person lessons and activities. And if that is not possible, compensating staff district-wide for planning that goes beyond the school day. Curriculum district initiatives be put on hold, such as math pilots and number corner, as teachers have enough to learn how to teach and handle in this new reality. We know that administrators are and have been working overtime to get plans in place, as has staff been patient and flexible and working to get their classrooms ready so everyone can be safe. We all want the same thing, for everyone to be in a safe environment where learning and growth can take place. In order to achieve that goal together, there's just a lot that needs to happen in an extremely short amount of time, as well as a lot that needs to be done on a daily basis in order for the school year to remain safe and a conducive learning environment for all. Thank you.
Melissa Blatt, she covered it all. I was back there.
Anybody else? That's it.
Thank you. All right, 13.0, adjourn to the closed session for the purpose of
Discussion of the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation for a specific employee of the public body that is subject to the local government wage increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with the Open Meetings Act as defined in the Open Meetings Act, Section 2C1. The discussion of collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees as defined in Section 2C2. We will not be discussing security procedures or any type of litigation during closed session. We will be discussing minutes of prior meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act as defined in Section 2C21 for the purpose of review, approval, or release of such minutes.
I'll make a motion to adjourn before the closed session.
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Davenport.
Aye.
Mr. Hillman.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
And Mrs. Egan.
Aye.
7:39.